I often begin my social work graduate school classes with the statement, social workers are the best kept secret, and we need to break that silence by having a social worker at every table because social workers are human capital experts and they provide value in every human interaction, whether it be traditional therapy or in a business setting as a manager or as a CEO or with a CEO. Social workers innately and are trained to use both empathy and practical skills in helping individual, group, and organizational clients recognize best practices to solving challenges. And I just want to point out that our newly elected President Joe Biden has named Andrea Palm, a social worker, as the Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Welcome to Small and Gutsy, a podcast featuring interviews with nonprofit and social impact organizations under $10 million. My name is Laura Witkoff, and I'm excited and proud to be your host. My hope is that you love the stories as much as we do, and perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, or donate. Feel free to pass along any valuable information you hear today to others, and remember to send me the name of any organization you'd like featured at reachus@theintrinsicgroup.com. Luckily for me, there is this amazing network of social work practitioners that has been breaking the silence for 36 years. The Network for Social Work Management is an international organization focused on strengthening and advancing social work management within health and human services. It's a membership organization for social workers and human services professionals working at all levels of management across a broad and diverse range of organizations. The Network for Social Work Management offers a platform to communicate, collaborate, and encourage its members to grow within their professional careers. And it's free. I am so very excited to introduce my colleague, fellow doctorate in social work, and the Chief Executive Officer of the Network for Social Work Management, Dr. Lakia Cherry. So let's get started. Welcome, Dr. Cherry, and I'd love for you to share your passion about the Network for Social Work Management and your deep connection and commitment and what led to your involvement.
Thank you, Dr. Witkoff. I really appreciate the invitation. Well, in your introduction, you mentioned the importance of social workers having a seat at the table. And I think that is where my interest lies. As a social worker, I previously thought that we could only be clinical practitioners. That is what I had always seen and observed, no matter what setting I worked in. It wasn't until I worked at a tech startup that I began to see social workers doing different things, which made me curious what would happen if we were given more tools and encouraged to really branch out outside of clinical practice. And so through my work with the tech startup, I learned of the Network for Social Work Management. I had not previously heard of it. I was currently in a management role at 2U Incorporated, and I was utilizing other sources for management knowledge for leadership development. So when I learned about the Network for Social Work Management, I wondered where it had been and why it was such a secret, especially for other social workers like myself who were now moving into leadership roles. Fortunately for me, an opportunity came out to apply to become the executive director, CEO of the network. Initially, I was hesitant, but I applied, and I applied because I realized that if I could figure out how to update the brand and the presence of this organization, we could do some really great work for social workers who, again, need us and need this training and need this visibility, but also for others outside of our sector.
What a great story. The brand piece is so important because it was an unknown thing. I hadn't known about it either until the last, 5 or 6 years for probably the same reason. And similar to what I think Small and Gutsy is trying to do by raising the visibility of the smaller sector, you've had that same challenge. So share with me, since you began, some of the things that you've done, because I've certainly seen them as a member, to expand the visibility of the network, because I believe it has since you've taken leadership there.
Well, I've been here 7.5 years, so I've done quite a few things. One of the first things was to update our website within budget. When I first found out about the organization, the website hadn't been updated and geez, probably about 10 years, 10 to 15. It was very outdated in its look and its appeal, in addition to the collateral materials. So the handouts that we would give that spoke about the organization, all of those things were significantly outdated. We have a very small budget, so I needed to figure out what we could do within budget to elevate us somewhat. So we went through a first redo. It lasted for about a year, and then I thought we could do better. And so around that time, I learned of Catch a Fire. And Catch a Fire is an organization where small business owners and nonprofits, you can pay an annual fee in order to get freelance services pro bono from experts in various fields. So whether it's marketing, whether it's web design and development, whether it's financial stuff or what have you, you pay that $2,000. You can have a certain number of projects at a time. And so I utilized Catch a Fire for about a year when I first got started. And that is how I learned about my next web developer. And they updated our website again. And they, in addition to that, helped me with improving some of our branding. The next approach was to increase our visibility and the amount of followers we had on all of our social media platforms. So we updated our headers and we began posting content numerous times throughout the day about leadership development and about management. Stock images, hashtags, repeated posts, we were able to grow the network significantly. You mentioned in your introduction that membership is free. That also helped because when you have a marketing plan and then people see that they have an opportunity to receive so much at no cost, why wouldn't they join? You can always join, see if you like it, and unsubscribe, which is something I always tell people, but that really helped elevate our brand and increase our access to people around the world.
It's such a wonderful network because people have access to each other in terms of the collaborative piece. And so share with me some of the membership offerings you have for folks. You can just list a few. You have a lot, so.
We do have a lot. So, well, prior to this interview starting, we were talking about the network's annual conference. For 31 years, our organization has held an in-person annual conference. That is something that is typically attended by 350 to 500 people from around the country and a few people internationally. It's a multi-day event with receptions, networking opportunities, in addition to keynotes, panels, workshops. Due to COVID, we had to postpone the event last year, but instead, we're now working on an inaugural Forward Thinking Summit, which will be a 5-day virtual event. So that's one of our offerings. We also have had a policy fellowship program for the last 4+ years. We've had well over 50 social work leaders from across the country go through and experience this fellowship. Last year, we also had a program called Change Makers of Color, which was connected to my doctoral research and my passion to address the racial leadership gap within the nonprofit sector. That was funded by the California Endowment, and it was an effort to provide marginalized leaders within the sector access to coaching, mentoring, training, in addition to social support as a way to increase their social capital, while also involving white leaders in the field who are committed to racial equity. So that is an integral part of our network and who we are moving forward.
Will you be able to continue that? Because it sounds like that was launching from your doctoral work that could become a mainstay, because I think it's so needed, and I would love to see that program continue.
We want it to continue. I actually just had a board retreat recently, and we updated our mission and vision, which I'll share. It's not public yet, but if you'd like to hear it.
It will be when we launch. So yes, please do.
Racial equity is now going to be part of the mission of the network moving forward, addressing this racial leadership gap, and to do so just a very intentional way and manner. One of the challenges with Changemakers of Color is we have a lot of interest, but we have no funding. And so I mentioned that the pilot was funded by the California Endowment, but despite us having a pilot that was successful with data, no matter how many grants we apply for, I think oftentimes funders, they're hesitant to fund small organizations with limited staff and limited budgets, regardless of what they are capable of doing. And so right now I'm fundraising. I have a Changemakers of Color fund. My goal is to at least raise $25,000. I haven't raised $5,000 just yet, but I'm still hopeful and committed because I do know that there's a need for this. And many of our marginalized members from across the country have expressed interest in participating in this program again once it's available.
So let's dedicate this podcast to Changemakers of Color and to your fundraising efforts, because your network is large. And so if we can get everybody on board to say this is absolutely worth preserving and continuing, that's going to be my message in this podcast. I think it's great.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Fundraising is difficult as a small organization, but we're committed to figuring it out. One of my fallback plans is a lot of organizations express their desire to become more intimately involved with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to do so in a way that's not solely performative. So if there are leaders of organizations who are committed to this work, then perhaps they might be willing to fund some of their employees to go through this program. And that would be another approach to generating revenue that would support our various costs.
That would be great. And I assume that some of the other offerings you have are at a nominal cost.
The conference and the Forward Thinking Summit, those are product lines that typically cost money. The Policy Fellows program is grant funded. The New York Community Trust has supported this program for the last few years. But we also have programs such as the International Mentoring Program. That is something we previously offered free, but the cost and time and labor and everything else led us to kind of fall back a little bit. But our hope is to eventually figure out how we're going to fund that to bring that international mentoring program back. We also have an Emerging Leaders Institute. People typically pay a small fee of $50 to $75 to participate in that. We have a Doctoral Scholars Institute. This one is typically sponsored by an academic institution. And so with everything that we offer, if it's not free, we still try to keep our pricing equitable and ensure that most people can access what we're offering.
It's such an opportunity for people to join, get a feel for it, network, collaborate, find opportunities for themselves, offer opportunities to others. And so to maintain that, these programs and your fundraising has to be at the forefront.
Exactly. And the network used to be a membership association, but it is no longer. Prior to me being hired, my board felt that the membership cost just wasn't generating enough revenue to really sustain the organization, but the organization wasn't as inclusive as it could be when it was charging dues. So it wasn't until they eliminated those costs that we were able to have a reach of 10 to 15,000 plus people around the world, because paying dues can be a barrier, but then also if you have, say, one or two staff, how are you really effectively going to manage when it's time for you to pay dues, when it's time for someone else to pay dues, especially as people are joining and signing on at different times, and then there's different offerings. We moved from a 501c6 to solely a 501c3, but with that, becoming known in the space as a nonprofit, becoming known to funders, many of our members, again, I still say members, many people who affiliate with us still see us as a membership association because we've existed for over 30 years and we love it. You are a member of our organization, but we are a 501c3. Very strategic. Again, we're still trying to figure out all of the strategy behind it, but we saw that it would open us up to so many more opportunities once we dissolve the C6.
I have a question about the upcoming summit called Forward Thinking, and I know it's your first one. Can you share a little bit about that? And then maybe talk a little bit about how that will be different than your in person conference events.
Well, it has the same theme as our postponed conference, which is a vision for the future, maximizing social impact. One thing that's definitely different is that it's virtual. Our typical conference, while it's multi-day, is typically 2.5 days, and this summit will be 5 days. It will start around noon East Coast time and go into evening. But then also we're honoring the presentations that were accepted from our annual conference. And so some of our regular members and conference presenters, they'll be presenting at the summit, but they'll be doing so virtually. We plan to allow them to either pre-record, which isn't preferred, or to present live, which is my preference. We'll have a keynote speaker. We're hoping for 2. Right now, we're trying to confirm Wes Moore. He was supposed to be our keynote speaker at the conference. We hadn't announced it yet, and then we literally had to postpone it. And so we're hoping to bring him back. There's also someone else who is very well known that I'm hoping we can get. Other things, you may know that I am in the New Futures Fellowship through Portland State University and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And so with this fellowship, I'm focused on the future of work with a focus on leadership and racial equity. Futures work is extremely important to me, as well as the network moving forward. And so each day, Dr. Laura Neeson is going to do 5 to 10 minute demonstrations with participants on different aspects of futures thinking. So that is something to get people thinking in a forward way, but also to give them the practical skills and application of these concepts. So that's something that's new.
I love that. And it sounds like you'll keep a summit concept going in the future and using that as a format of something every day to create both engagement, but helping people apply a new strategy is a great opportunity.
This is my plan. A lot of conferences are so theoretical that they're just boring. I don't like boring. And so people want to learn new skills. They want to know what it looks like in practice. And so the goal with the summit is to make our offerings accessible to everyone around the world outside of social work, anyone interested in the social impact space. But then also connection and networking is extremely important. I spent the last 6 months paying attention to how other organizations were moving their conferences online, what the feedback looked like, what some of the complaints were. And while I don't know that ours will go off without any problems, I mean, it is a virtual world, so I expect that it won't be perfect. Connectivity and networking is extremely important to me. That is one of the things people often talk about when they come to our conferences in person, is the fact that there's such great, rich networking opportunities. So we're working behind the scenes to figure out how to ensure that this summit has that component, that it's not you just log in, watch a pre-recorded webinar essentially, and then sign off and go back to all of the other tasks that you have to do for today. But you're like, oh my gosh, Dr. Witkoff is online. I'm going to message her. Let's create a podcast room where we could talk about all of the different social impact podcasts and how we can support each other. And so there will be a lot of strategy ahead of time to ensure people understand our platform.
I am totally there. I love it. I love the concept. And what I love specifically is that you are absolutely geared toward active engagement, not being passive. So rather than just listening to something, you are really broaching on how do we actively engage, try things out, talk about them in real time.
And then collecting data. So if we try something and you don't like it, we're going to be paying attention so that we can modify and improve for the future. And so we're going to try our best for this inaugural event to, do as many cool interactive things as possible. But then if we miss, we'll just learn and improve the next time.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think if you don't jump in, you don't learn. And it's being, both you and I adore Brene Brown, it's being courageous, it's being daring, it's being vulnerable. And all of those things are really powerful and good and necessary in the nonprofit social impact space, or things wouldn't change.
Exactly. Our organization is fully stepping into the arena without armor and knowing that we have grounded confidence and the tools to, sustain us and to survive regardless. So we're ready.
Yeah, I love it. You've described sort of my audio journey in producing this podcast and seeing where it goes and hoping that it helps and raise visibility. And you're a main feature because we're in alignment around that. It's really remarkable. So other assets that I know you have that I absolutely love because I read them and think they're really cool. The Monday Morning Manager. Say a little bit about that. It's very cool. It's a great title.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it, although we actually haven't had a Monday morning feature for some time. Perhaps you could be our next feature and we can promote your podcast. So it's been around, for over 7 years. I think it came from something like the 5-Minute Manager or something like that. When I first came to the network, again, we talked about the importance of social workers having a seat at the table. I realized that there wasn't much visibility for social workers who are in leadership roles, who are managing organizations. If you were a social worker who had those interests, it would be really difficult to see or identify those people. And because our organization had a diverse national, international audience, I thought, why not feature them? Let's create a template where people can self-identify or you can refer someone. We ask you a few questions and we broadcast and help promote you. We do the self-promotion for you so that other people can see that we're out there, that we exist, that we're doing amazing, cool things. But then you can reconnect with your old colleagues, your old mentors, your old friends. You can get consulting opportunities and other job or publishing opportunities, which we've seen. So that's really where it came from. It came from wanting to promote the leaders among us and letting our own profession know that we're out here and we're not going away and that we're doing amazing things, but letting others know, like, wow, social workers are not just clinicians. There are social workers in non-traditional roles around the world, and you should be paying attention to them.
I love that connection because as I, introduce this podcast, I really believe social workers have, again, both this innate capacity and then learned capacity through, knowledge and skill building and education and so on and so forth, to really be a member of a management group, a change agent in various capacities, and really do need to be highlighted for their vast ability to look at things through multiple lenses. I've always thought social work as a title is an outdated name. I would love to start a campaign to change the name because it doesn't fit what we all really do.
It's funny that you say that because with my futures work, a question that keeps going around is whether or not social work will exist or be relevant in the future. And my quick, immediate answer is no, and that it shouldn't, and that it could be redesigned or restarted, reimagined. But the future I envision wouldn't have social workers as we are right now. And I also feel that with our branding as is, we need a redo.
Okay, so not to put one more thing on your plate, Dr. Cherry, however, you and I need to start a campaign to think about changing the label because it's a label that doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah, definitely. If you do all the work, I'm in.
We'll figure out a way to do it together. You've got too much energy. I got to capture that energy, and together we'll figure out something. I know you also have a network career newsletter, and you have a Saturday morning coffee.
Yes, so there's the Saturday Morning Buzz, a personal favorite of mine. And that really came from the fact that I was reading the Harvard Business Review all the time, and I was reading Stanford Innovation and Fast Company and INC and Entrepreneur and Forbes and all these other places. But I often wonder, are other social workers and others within my audience reading these things? And the more I read them, I thought we should know this and we should be producing similar content, which I just wasn't seeing. So I figured, because I'm already reading it, I'm going to start sharing it. Initially, we started the Saturday Morning Buzz. I believe it was every week, but that became too burdensome. So we moved it to every other week. And we figure in the morning, people drink their coffee. I know I have a couple cups of coffee. And in the past, you would grab a newspaper. As you're settling into your morning, why not get a little bit of development in? The gist behind Saturday Morning Buzz, it was sharing top articles around leadership development and management of the past 2 weeks with our audience, while also at the bottom highlighting an upcoming event or news. For example, we have a new board member with the network. So the most recent buzz highlighted that this new board member had joined. Other things that we've recently included are podcasts. And so at the bottom to the right, we'll include a few podcasts, and then TED Talks, because who doesn't love a good TED Talk? And then the Wednesday Network, our audience is diverse in terms of its composition. So we're primarily practitioners, but we have students, we have consultants, we have emerging leaders, we have middle managers, we have executives, we have academics, we have deans, then we have the non-social workers, the people who found us and just love us. We have a little bit of everything and everybody. And so the goal with the Wednesday Network, this newsletter comes out the first Wednesday of every month. If you're hiring and you're interested in a macro social worker, then we were going to promote you in the Wednesday Network. And we would give you tips and recommendations for hiring your next candidate. If you're in the market and you're looking for your next job, interviewing tips, resume tips. So it's a little bit of everything, but it's very career focused. We also have a job bank. It was a secret way to promote our job bank, so we can generate some passive revenue as well.
You really have something for every member, which is quite remarkable. So as you may know, in my podcast, we always have a round of quick, gutsy questions. So are you ready to go to that quick, gutsy round?
No.
You're so cute. You have to be daring and courageous, okay?
Okay. Dr. Whitcoff, I'm ready.
It won't be too scary, I promise. What is at the top of your wish list, but the answer can't be money or funding?
As soon as you started asking the question, I thought money. Before you said it can't be money or funding. I would say this is very broad, but I would say support. And so you know me and you know our organization. We do a lot, but it's literally two people. It's myself, my admin, and then I have a pretty decent sized board of directors. But we could do more if more members were interested in partnering with us and collaborating with us to offer more. And so if people wanted to do something similar like what you're doing right now with the podcast, to feature our organization and help with visibility, if people wanted to support and share what we post on their social media platforms, help give broader recognition to what we're doing to people outside of our typical audience, but then also using your talents to invest back in our work.
I think that's an incredible wish and a wonderful wish, and we really should be doing that for each other. And so I love that because you're setting a standard of practice. And when you find something good, you want to repost it, share it. And so the Network for Social Work Management is that type of organization that should be shared in every platform. So I'm going to do it on ours, obviously, and I'm hoping that that wish will reach other people's ears and they'll do it as well. That's great.
I really appreciate that. One thing I have noticed, which is somewhat strange to me, especially for an organization that is free to join, many people don't share it. It's almost like it's their secret club or their thing. So I always tell our members, are you telling your students? Are you telling your friends and your colleagues within this field about our organization? Or are you keeping it as your own private thing? And if so, why? The more the merrier.
It's interesting because I encourage every student of mine to join. And it's an opportunity for them. And students are welcome and they're encouraged and they're engaged. And it's sometimes one of their early opportunities to be in a professional network.
I appreciate you doing your part to further our brand.
You are more than welcome. It's completely my pleasure. Next gutsy question. If you were to think of a song that describes the network, what would it be?
This is a hard one.
But it's a fun one.
Is it?
We'll make it fun. You can even sing if you want to. Some people have.
Oh, no way. I love music, but I know I can't sing.
Same here, sadly.
Let's go with Andra Day, Rise.
Beautiful. I love that song.
Like, you hear that song, and if you don't get goosebumps, who are you?
What makes your organization gutsy, or how is the network gutsy?
Because I'm in the arena, I'm just going to go with my gut. Me. I'm the leader of the organization. So, yeah, it's me.
Now I need for you to explain that a little further because it's so true. Even though it's a quick, gutsy question, you are gutsy. And I think you could think of a ton of examples of how your leadership has been gutsy. Just give us one.
I am open to doing things that we've never done before. I'm also open to learning from other disciplines and bringing that information to our audience in a very accessible way. I believe in technology and utilizing it. I don't mind. I mean, sometimes it's a little challenging, but I don't mind taking risks and piloting and trying things. I tend to be very future facing. I'm pretty self-aware and I'm mindful of what people are saying about our profession, within our profession, external to our profession. And I lead being aware of what I would want if I wasn't in this role, but a member of this organization. And that drives me and that inspires me to create and partner and to bring new things to this audience.
Beautiful answer, beautiful response. And it gives empathy, in a way, a new meaning, because empathy and being gutsy can go hand in hand. You can put yourself in a member's shoes and figure out, how can I push this forward in a gutsy way? What is something that outsiders or maybe even insiders don't know about the Network for Social Work Management?
I've commented on this a few times. For example, many people think that we are still a membership association. People are often surprised that we don't have hundreds of employees behind the scenes, that it is 2 people. This is something that I'm working on, especially with our revised and improved mission and vision. Because it is free, oftentimes people will join not fully understanding who we are and what we do. And I want that to be a lot more clear moving forward, because there is a place for everyone, but you have to know what that place is. Like, I don't want people just joining to get more emails. And so I don't know if that fully answered your question, but there's a lot of things that people don't know. People don't know that we have an academic journal, for example.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm.
We have a journal, yeah.
It's on your website, but you're right. We hadn't talked about that. So thank you. If you could get one celebrity or influencer to endorse and talk about your organization, who would it be?
Well, of course, it'd have to be Dr. Brene Brown.
I was just thinking, perfect answer, of course.
Yeah.
No question. And then she'll come and speak and do a workshop. Yes, we're going to hashtag her on this one.
Hashtag workshops, plural.
Yes, for sure. How should people find the Network for Social Work Management? What's the best way?
I would say the best way would be socialworkmanager.org to browse our website, look at the different sections, see what we have going on, and then write down questions you have that are unanswered after your review. If upon looking at our website, you're still unclear, email us at info@socialworkmanager.org, and I'd be willing to schedule time to chat about what we do and why.
Perfect. That's great. Any other last comments or thoughts that you'd like to share before we close out?
Yes, actually, I want to share our revised vision and mission.
Fabulous. Go for it. Please
Okay.
do.
So the new vision of the network, again, this hasn't been publicly announced yet. We're still doing work behind the scenes, but it's we envision a just and inclusive society co-created by diverse leaders using a racial equity framework to advance social good. So that is the vision.
I love that.
And then the mission, we strengthen and mobilize diverse social impact leaders through education, leadership development, networking, and community building.
I love it. And we've just come up with, or you and your fantastic board and stakeholders have come up with the perfect name for future social workers, which is embedded in your mission statement. Do you want to repeat that? Social impact.
We strengthen and mobilize diverse social impact leaders through education, leadership development, networking, and community building.
It's beautiful. So social impact leaders. So now we have a new masters we have to put forward. And when we create this campaign, thank you. That is remarkable. Dr. Cherry, thank you for being my interviewee and representing the network and leading it so effectively and being gutsy and out there with all that you do to support current social workers and future social impact leaders.
Thank you, Dr. Wetkoff. I, again, appreciate the invitation, and I love the important work that you're doing.
I want to thank the Network for Social Work Management and Dr. Lakia Cherry again for talking with me today and sharing her vision and her new, actually, vision and mission, which is not public, but we get it first, which is amazing. And as I said earlier, I'd like to dedicate this podcast to the change makers of color and to really promote them and foster any donations that go to the network earmarked for that purpose to sustain that amazing new program. Our blog of these small and gutsy nonprofits and small social impact organizations can be found in the organizational stories section of the Intrinsic Group website so that we can continue to link clients, volunteers, future employees, and donors to this small but very mighty network. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the organizations we interview. So before you sign on to support or work for them, we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research them as well. We just want you to learn about the small and gutsy nonprofit and social impact organizational sector so they can spread their story and their very impactful work. I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, the Intrinsic Group, a management consulting firm specializing in guiding organizations to leverage talent and optimize processes, the volunteers, my co-producer and sound engineer and composer Pavel Franson, and my graphic designer Nate Addy. Please check out their bios on the Intrinsic website and all the folks, friends, and family who have guided and inspired me. And thank you for listening. So as you all know, we've started since our 10th episode to give shout outs to all of you who are giving a shout out to us. So here we go. Adam Edwards, congrats, Laura. You are an inspiration and you generously share that light with others. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. I really appreciate it. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends, give us some stars, and write a review on wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're interested in sponsoring Small and Gutsy to keep it going, please reach out to me at reachus@theintrinsicgroup.com. I'm Laura, and thanks for listening.